Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome to the best place on earth, my recording studio in my one-bedroom apartment. Everybody, welcome. It's the best place on earth. It's like Disney World or something. At least it's what I tell myself every day. But ZakIsCinema, as you guys know, is just for all those people out there that just love movies and have never, ever forgotten the day that Best Buy decided to literally slap us across the face and say they're not releasing any more physical media anymore. I still remember that day. I dream about it nightly, and now I have all this plastic on my shelf, and I kind of start to think that maybe I'm the problem, and that's why they had to get rid of it. I don't know. I bought a lot, and I'm still sad. But if you're in the same boat, you have found the right place, and welcome. We got another first-time watch review video today. So for anybody new here, these first-time watch reviews are basically me watching a movie for the first time and then giving you guys my thoughts. Let's just jump right into the review. Today we're going to be doing a first-time watch review for My Bloody Valentine 3D, the 2009 one, everybody. So My Bloody Valentine 3D was directed by Patrick Lussier. For writers, we got Todd Farmer and Zane Smith. Starring in this movie, we got Jensen Ackles, Jamie King, Kerr Smith, Kevin Teague, and Tom Atkins. So the plot for the My Bloody Valentine remake follows the story of 10 years ago, a coal miner named Tom Hanninger caused an accident that killed 5 men and put Harry Warden into a coma. 10 years later, Tom returns home but is haunted by his past and a pickaxe-wielding killer who may be the ghost of Harry Warden. So as we jump into this review, I had just reviewed the original My Bloody Valentine from 1981, so check out that video if you're interested. But I was just kind of curious and interested in checking out some Valentine's Day themed slasher horror movies. I'm always such a sucker for those holiday themed horror or slasher movies, and Valentine's Day just seems one that there's not a lot of movies out there for it. So I was interested in checking out the original, and then after I'd watched the original, I found out they did a remake, so I'm like, this is perfect. This is what everyone at ZakIsCinema has been waiting for. We have the holiday obviously coming up soon. We got Heart Eyes coming out this week, which I'm definitely looking forward to and excited to talk about. I feel like I'm just always in the mood for a slasher movie. Like I said, love some holiday slasher movies, and it feels like we've been kind of getting a bit of a resurgence with some of those, which is cool to see. While I was preparing for this video, I also found out that this is the first R-rated 3D movie with a theatrical release that kind of helps set the trend of those 3D horror movies and those 3D horror remake movies that came out in the early 10s and kind of throughout the 2010s there. So it's kind of interesting because you don't hear a lot of people talk about this specific remake, but it kind of was the first one to do that 3D gimmick horror remake and kind of set the trend for what we saw with like Texas Chainsaw, Saw, a bunch of other movies like those. So it was kind of interesting given how little people talk about this movie today. I also found out there was a sequel pitched for this remake movie that would have been more of a psychological horror thriller movie, and they actually planned to kill off the Sarah character. But after the mixed reviews for the 3D remake movie came out, Lionsgate just kind of lost interest, never developed that story or that movie any further. It's kind of interesting finding that out now, especially after seeing the movie. You could kind of see a direction they could take it, and it sounds like it would have been a unique and new direction to take it that the original and the remake didn't do. So let's jump into the review now, starting with my positive section, or the things that I really enjoyed in this remake. So I actually really enjoyed, for some reason, the opening monologue and narration scene in this movie. I usually don't mind them in horror movies here and there, but I think this one works well because it just gives us some necessary backstory and information and gets us right into the movie. It doesn't waste your time with unnecessary narration or exposition scenes. It's like, all right, we got to deliver some information here. Let's get it to you quick. And then let's jump into the pickaxing and slashing. My next positive I had here is I really enjoyed that this movie didn't stray too far from its source material of the original movie, but it still made a big effort to at least expand on its premise, improve certain details and characters from the original to this 3D remake. For example, in the original movie in 1981, Harry Warden was, I believe, trapped in a cave because people left early for a Valentine's Day party. He comes back later for revenge, and that's when all the massacre goes down. But in this version, he is in another coal mining accident, but he's left in a coma before waking up, I believe it was like a year later, and then going on his killing spree. And then from what the town thinks, after that, he disappears. Nobody knows where he's at, if he's really alive, if the police really killed him. It's a small little change there, but they're at least setting up something a little bit different, giving us just a new version of this story. And I like how it just wasn't one small little detail that was different. There's plenty of examples here. I really enjoyed how they handled the characters of Sarah, Axel, and our new character, but just a version of the original. In this movie, his name is Tom. The opening does a great job at showing Tom feeling like out of place in his friends group as they're all going to that coal mining party in the coal mines. You could tell he feels out of sorts. He's not really comfortable. You could tell he might not really want to be there. Once Harry Warden wakes up from his coma and starts killing in the hospital, chaos starts to spill over into the mine area where all of our main characters are at. And then this is when Tom ends up trapped behind his friends, forcing them to make a pretty big decision of either staying and helping Tom or getting out of there and leaving, and they choose to leave him behind, including the two friends that he seemed very hesitant towards, and then his girlfriend. So big moment, and I think it's set up well with the narration because then you jump right into this really entertaining opening scene, and it sets our characters up on much different arcs than the original, but definitely arcs that I can get behind, and there's some sort of purpose, there's some sort of motivation there. There's actually an interesting dynamic with all of these characters that I'm getting invested into right off the bat compared to our original, which really failed to do much with our characters. Again, it's nothing crazy like world bending will redefine the genre, but I think it's just some nice touches here in this remake, and you get a great opening scene of his friends having to choose their lives over time, so they choose theirs, and then it has ramifications obviously throughout the entire story. So like I said, this moment immediately gives all of our characters a much stronger starting point. It creates more emotional weight, character arcs, and motivations that weren't as fleshed out in our original movie. Next, I think the movie also fixes a pretty significant issue I had with the original by giving Tom in this movie a real reason for leaving town and abandoning his girlfriend Sarah. This time in the remake, his decisions to leave actually make sense, and it helps explain why the characters choose to stay. Because he had this horrible, traumatic experience. His friends and girlfriend just left him for dead. It totally makes sense why he would leave, say, fuck it to his relationship and his girlfriend with Sarah and not come back for like over a decade. So it makes a lot of sense, and I think my issue with the original is you're supposed to get invested with the relationship, but they never set it up properly. So this, they're already setting up those little breadcrumbs there, those motivations and those reasons behind our main characters, including Tom. Another thing that this movie is a big improvement on over the original is the gore and creative kills. Now, after finding out that with the original it was edited to shit and not really the movie's fault, unfortunately, I wasn't expecting much going into this movie. Thought it'd be a little similar, 3D aspect I thought would just give just a bunch of crazy over-the-top blood splatter, and I didn't really think there'd be much to the kills or kill scenes. But luckily, I was proven wrong here. Right from the opening scene, we get a lot more carnage and great uses of practical effects and CGI effects. I also appreciated the extra detail of showing the aftermath of Harry ripping out the victims' hearts, as it helps to reinforce that Valentine's Day theme. Also sprinkling in some more brutality and gore, because this is a slasher. It's what we go here for, and a big chunk of what was missing from that original movie. I like the aftermath there. They look gnarly and nasty, just with their chests like ripped open. It adds to the theme. It adds to that slasher intensity. It's not like Terrifier levels, but it's right there where I think most slashers should fit in. Just gory, crazy, over the top enough where if someone's not too used to slashers, they might get a little squeamish. But for slasher fans, horror fans, it's plenty, it's enjoyable, and it's a lot of fun to watch. They do have some pretty genuinely memorable kills in this movie. Again, nothing too crazy, but some that stuck with me. Like, for example, the aftermath of the hospital massacre, where you get all the bodies ripped open, just laying in the hallway. I think the first big kill with the pickaxe going through a dude's eye, complete with that cheesy 2010s 3D effect, which I kind of just enjoy that charm in this movie. It sets you into that 3D mode and vibe, and shows you exactly what this movie is going to be going for. There's a cool shovel kill where a girl's face gets like split in half, and then they add a cool little detail where it looked all practical, and then you could kind of see like the top half of her head sliding around like on the shovel. Just neat little details like that. You could tell they took their time with things like this. There's a really cool kill scene that I forget who he was killing, but there was you get the coal miner Harry Warden guy. He loses his pickaxe, another character picks it up, swings it at him, and then Harry Warden like blocks it with his foot, and then just kicks it back into the dude's head like he's kicking a soccer ball. It's crazy. It reminded me of that kill scene that I absolutely love in Halloween Kills, when Michael just slams that door back into the girl's hand who's holding the gun, and she like shoots herself. It's just so over the top and silly, but gruesome at the same time. And lastly here, there's an awesome, brutal jaw rip scene with Tom Atkins' character that the only thing I didn't like about it is that I was hoping Tom Atkins would be in this movie a little bit more. The practical effects hold up very well, and since this is one of those early 3D horror movies, I don't mind the CGI blood all that much. It adds to the overtop fun factor that this movie is trying to go for. Compared to maybe a more serious movie that uses CGI blood, it might take me out of it a little bit more, but this movie, I was honestly totally fine with it. I think I prefer the added kills and gore in this movie because it actually adds some intensity, some suspense into this movie. I really enjoyed how the movie made us care about the relationships between characters, especially with Tom and Sarah and some of his friends. Again, a nice little detail adding to that Valentine's Day theme. Unlike the original, this one in the remake, I actually cared and was somewhat invested, so I think it works for that Valentine's Day theme a little bit better since the relationship stuff is more effective. I think this movie keeps its small town atmosphere from the original while adding more depth to the story. Having Tom return to town because he's selling his family's coal mine is a smart choice. Gives him a reason to come back, and it also helps utilize our cave setting. Spoilers here, again, as we continue with our positives. I don't know. Like, I don't even know what the cutoff is to when you don't have to warn people for spoilers, but hey, ZakIsCinema will always look out for you, so I got you guys. Don't even trip, dog, okay? I think one of the strongest aspects of this movie is how well it sets itself up as a whodunit mystery. Since we've seen the original, we're fairly certain it's like, we don't think it's Harry Warden, which leaves us questioning who the killer is, but the movie does a great job at making everyone seem like a suspect, and personally, I had no idea who this was going to be, especially since all the main characters get scenes with Harry Warden, the coal mining killer. They do a good job at making sure everyone is eliminated, and you're just like, who is it? To the point where I'm like, maybe it is just Harry Warden's back. back. I don't know, but I like how the movie almost uses your knowledge on the original to set up your expectations, but then they kind of flip it a little, making it more of a whodunit than maybe the original did. And all of it is very investful to watch. I really do love the twist. We find out that Harry Warden actually died in the opening scene the year after he woke up from his coma, and the police are shooting him before he attacks Tom. You find out after he was running away, the police actually got him there. They killed him. He bled out. But Tom's trauma from being left behind gave him severe trauma, which led to him developing an alternate personality and becoming almost like this copycat type killer. And I think what makes this reveal even better is that Tom himself doesn't realize until the very end. He's so far gone mentally that he had no idea he was the one doing it. I think it does a great job at setting up your expectations, thinking, well, maybe it is Harry Warden, but since we've seen the original, it's probably not. And then as you're watching, it's a really good whodunit because it's so hard to narrow down who it could be. Like, you think you know, like I was thinking it has to be like Tom or Axel here, right? But we get scenes where the killer is chasing them. So I think they use that twist idea of it being in Tom's head and he doesn't even know. I think they use that in a good way when we're watching the movie because it's in his head, so they can kind of cheat a little by showing the killer with him because they're like, well, that's what our boy Tom is seeing. I hate to call it a gimmick because it is a little gimmicky, but it makes sense for the story that they're going for, and I think it works well for me just because I was genuinely curious on who it was going to be and wasn't really sure when I was watching. Like I said, with the gimmick aspect, I know some people might see this as like a cheap twist, but it worked for me. It kept me guessing. I wasn't expecting it, and I really appreciate, again, another detail about how vastly different this movie is from its original. On top of that, we get a cool little Silence of the Lamb homage style ending where Tom walks away dressed up in just regular, I believe, firefighter gear, so he kind of blends in with the crowd, walks away, looks back, and then keeps on walking, very much like Silence of the Lambs. And I really like how it came full circle, bringing things back to the cave in a way that mirrors what originally turned Harry Warden into a killer. Like, we get our revelation of Tom being the killer, we get his reasons why, and then it comes full circle. Like, again, using that cave setting, seeing how it fucked up Harry Warden, it now fucked up Tom, just in different ways. So I do like how it came full circle there. I think the original twist was a much creepier and done very subtly, but I enjoyed watching this one play out. It was just more fun watching it. Sure, it didn't leave me thinking like the original did. With this one, the twist is good in its own way, and I enjoy kind of watching it play out for that fun slasher aspect. Let's jump into the negatives for My Bloody Valentine. First, we're going to start off with the ending here. As much as I enjoyed that twist and revelation that we get with Tom's character, I really just can't get past how Tom somehow survives that explosion. Like, that happened 1 foot away from him in the cave. I thought that would be fine because it's a fun, dumb slasher movie, and I thought he'd come out of the cave looking all like fucked up and had to put like his coal mining outfit back on, or that like firefighter gear he was wearing to like cover it up, and it'd be a cool last shot of him looking all fucked up. But he looks like he just like stumbled, tripped a little, and said, "Oops a daisies," and then got back up and walked away. Like, there's little dirt on his face. But there was a canister of gas that exploded next to him, flew his body, and the explosion was big enough to crumble in the cave. And he just gets up and walks away like it's fine. And again, it's a slasher movie, especially with this one, with its tone. It wasn't going ultra serious. But still, I just find myself kind of struggling to get fully invested in a movie when the directors start treating their human slasher villains like superheroes. Tom is not Jason, he's just Tom. Tom should not survive explosions like that. There's also some cliches, some rough acting, and cringe-worthy dialogue scenes, and unfortunately, I feel like you do get that in a lot of slasher movies, and there's parts in this movie like this. You get a lot of cliche scenes of people running, tripping over absolutely nothing. One scene that really stuck out to me was when Tom randomly confronts Sarah at the grocery store that she's working at after Tom had disappeared from the town for well over a decade, and then just comes back to confront Sarah at the grocery store. No build up, no warning. The dude doesn't even buy anything. He couldn't even pretend to buy a Butterfinger or something. I don't know, make it look less creepy, Tom, but just that dialogue and that exchange there is just so cringy. It's so weird that he's doing this in the middle of a grocery store in our checkout line. He's lucky there was no customers there. That's weird, dude. Don't put your ex-girl through that. She can't escape at work, Tom. I know I touched on it briefly in my positives, but I was just hoping they would expand even further on that Valentine's Day theme a bit more. They mostly just copy what the original did with updated effects. Like, you still get the heart in the heart-shaped chocolate Valentine's Day boxes, but as far as Valentine's Day themes, they really only improve upon the relationship aspect with our main characters and like Tom and Sarah. Other than that, I don't know. I was hoping he would do something else with the Valentine's Day theme, or maybe the town would feel more like they're celebrating Valentine's Day. As I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is a Valentine's Day movie. Like, every time like the chocolate box came up in the movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be a holiday slasher here, and I feel like you just don't fully feel that, unfortunately. I think with some of the writing issues is that Sarah and Axel never even acknowledge the fact that they straight up abandoned Tom in the beginning. They're all mad at him when he shows up, and I get it. He disappeared. He never contacted them in over a decade, but no one brings up like, hey man, like, you should have called, but hey, I've been waiting 10 years to say this. I'm really sorry for leaving you back there. Are you okay? Like, do you need to talk about that situation? That was pretty crazy, man. Like, nobody says that. At one point, I think Sarah, even when she's defending her reasoning for getting with Axel, and she's defending that decision to Tom, she even like throws it back in his face saying like, well, yeah, Axel was there for me when you weren't. And I'm like, dude, you guys just left him in a cave with a killer and drove away. He's lucky he didn't like come back and like beat the shit out of you, find out a way to press charges, or straight up murder you. He kind of does. So that point didn't make a lot of sense. But still, I was just waiting for someone to acknowledge this opening. I was waiting for, when I first saw that scene, I'm like, oh, this opening here is gonna bring out more in the conflict with our characters, but it never gets brought up again. A little disappointing because it's set up so unique, so different from the original, and I feel like it doesn't get fully utilized. It might get utilized a little bit for Tom's character and the reason that he left, but I just thought it would kind of come back. He might say it as like part of his motivation, like, hey, you guys left me. You guys left me. I hate this town, and I've come back to kill you. You don't get that, so I thought it was missing a connecting piece there. Lastly, maybe nitpicky writing issue here is there's a weird plot point where all the retired cops admit to everybody that they did end up killing Harry after the massacre in the beginning, but they covered it up and buried him deep in the woods. They didn't want the town to see them as like rogue vigilantes or something, or rogue cops with no rules or morals. But to me, it makes no sense. Harry was just slaughtering people at a hospital and then at a party, and you guys are literally the police. I feel like if anything, you guys could have captured him, hung him by his feet, and had a public execution as your ending for the Valentine's Day party that was going on, and everybody would then parade you guys around for saving the town. There is no justifiable reason for them to hide the body, bury it in the woods, and just keep it this like secret among cops. Like, we can't let the people know. I get why they did that, because you have to have it in the movie where the audience members and the characters still think Harry Warden's alive. We don't know where he is. There's no trace after that night. So it adds into the mystery. They couldn't just reveal early on like, hey, he's dead, because that would take a lot out of it. But just that plot convenience is just so stupid. It kind of took me out of it when they were like going to find it, and it was this mystery, and the cops are revealing this to Tom and Axel and everybody else. It's just like, well, guys, like, you didn't need to do that in the first place. So I think there's just some writing issues, just some things kind of like that throughout. overall, I really wasn't expecting much out of a 3D slasher remake to an original movie that I just kind of discovered. Honestly, this one really did surprise me. It's a slasher remake that tries to do things differently but vastly improves on some of the shortcomings the original had. It's gory, it's bloody, utilizes practical and CGI. It's a whodunit that left me guessing up until the very end. I think it's an enjoyable slasher movie with some big negatives here, but they're so easy to look past because the rest of the movie is just so enjoyable. It's fun, it's short, you get in, you get out, and it gave me what I was looking for. For my rating for this movie, I have it as I would honestly look to own this movie, add it to my collection, but I would only do this if it was on sale. I would never pay full price for this. I think it's definitely a fun slasher movie that'd be fun to watch again with other people who haven't seen it, or maybe just you're looking for a slasher movie around the Valentine's Day holiday. Yes, you guys have my thoughts here on the My Bloody Valentine 3D 2009 remake. Let me know what you guys think of this movie down below. Do you like it more than the original? Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below about these two movies. Do you ever hope to see a continuation from maybe the original or from this remake here? Let me know what your future hopes and dreams for the My Bloody Valentine franchise movies would be. I appreciate anybody clicking and watching my videos. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you guys watching. So thanks again. Look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.